Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hold on.
We'll see. All we need him to do is vote.
I'm you're not getting me?
We can check with Betsy. Hey, Betsy, can you hear us? Okay.
Are you hearing me? Tim, you getting me? Check, check, check.
Chris, this is Tim Sedgwick. I can hear you.
What's that?
Said I can hear you on the Zoom call.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Hey, Chris, it's Betsy. I can hear you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
It's going great. Trying to turn y'all up a little bit.
Would anybody who is a panelist on the Zoom meeting, please just acknowledge if you can hear us,
I can hear you.
because we can't. Sorry, no problem.
I can hear you. I can't hear anybody else, but I can hear you.
I can hear you as well.
Yeah, I'm just not sure we're here in the town of Somerville.
Can we get another mic check from the Zoom panelists?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't hear the board.
Oh,
Yeah, their microphones are not on, but when we get fully started, we were just trying to make it so that we could hear you guys.
Okay, sounds good.
are you getting me? Good.
And anytime you're ready, Chris.
All right, I'm calling to order the August 18th, 2022 Town of Somerville Design Review Board meeting. The first order of business is approving the minutes or editing the minutes. Anyone like to make a motion for approval?
Make motion approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, there are no signs, correct, Tim?
There are no signs.
All right. The first order, and there's agendas in the back table if you need one. But the first order of business is Old Dairy Road, Single Family Townhomes and Amenity Center. If, when you're ready, come on up and you can present. Make sure you state your name and your role in the project. If you're the engineer, say I'm the engineer. If you're the architect, say I'm the architect. If you're the builder, just so we can have some clarity on that. And Tim, I'll turn it over back to you after recuse for the first two. And I'll be back under new business.
With Chris recusing himself, I think somebody present should be the acting chairman for this instead of the vice chair who's currently zooming in. I think it would make more sense for him to run the meeting.
Agreed.
Just run the meeting, Bill. Thanks, sir.
Okay, if y'all would like to step forward. Old Dairy Road, single family townhouses and amenity center.
So this first item under old business is a request for final approval for a proposed new single-family townhome development and amenity center. Property zone PUD plan development. This is located west of Old Dairy Road on the Salisbury parcel. This last received preliminary approval at the June 16th, 2022 meeting. The site conceptually meets all requirements. All of the townhome units are rear alley access. I mean, nothing's really changed since the last meeting when it comes to that. At this point, it's just the review of the facades on the townhomes and the amenity center. The finishes include a mix of materials, including both horizontal and vertical siding materials, single roofs, brick base for the amenity center. The landscaping appears to meet the minimum requirements for the townhome and amenity center areas of the development. Street trees and lot trees appear to be meeting the requirements and will need to be verified at the time of permitting. Minimum 2.5 inch caliper trees must be planted according to the approved plan document. So those were just a couple of observations and so this is the overall location of the development. This is their information. I can turn it over to the applicant here for discussion.
Sure. So my name is Aaron Schmidt. I'm the project engineer, the project manager on this project. We're coming to y'all for final DRB. what we have here is the site layout. We've got it rendered out for you guys to show you the open spaces that we've done with the site layout. And then I can then turn it over to the architect who is zooming in. His name's Travis, for America's Home for Rent, and he can speak more on the architecture that's been updated on the townhomes. So as far as the site layout goes, the biggest thing that we wanted to do from preliminary to final is really kind of build up what our open spaces looked like. With that, we've created a mail kiosk, bus stop, and also kind of deck area near the two existing ponds, somewhere where there can be a place to kind of hang out, but also enjoy those existing ponds as they are. We've also created a trail system. You can kind of see it winding through the trees in the open area on just the southwest of the easement, the power easement, and then also to the northeast, just north of the amenity center. There's a larger 8-foot trail, asphalt trail that we'll be putting in to allow people to kind of circulate throughout the community. And that trail system actually follows its way down the main road, connects every open park area along the way, from the pond all the way plan left that you can see all the way back up to the amenity center. There's a trail system that connects the entire way. So that was kind of the biggest thing that we wanted to focus on and show the board. As far as the civil and the site rest of it goes, it's all very similar to what y'all have seen before. So with that, I'll go ahead and we can zip over to the townhome renderings and we can start to go through those. Sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So when you're coming in off of Old Dairy Road, there's a single lane that comes in and there are 2 lanes that go out, one that'll turn left and one that'll turn right. It's like a boulevard.
What you're looking at, Candy, is the right of way that's through there. That's not the entry, the green. It's white up here. The amenity center is right there.
And we can go to a site plan that kind of shows it better if you want to scroll down. Oh, you had it. Go up one more there. So that kind of shows more of the right of way and the roadway that and how it's tying in as far as the entrance goes. Yeah, definitely. So this is all site aspects. This is the planting right here. And it kind of further defines the trail systems. We're doing a trail system around the existing ponds as well on the backside in order to kind of allow people the opportunity to really capture this whole space and enjoy the whole space. There is, as the ponds sit right now, there is already kind of a built up maintenance / road around it that Mr. Bill Salisbury, when he owned the property, created. And we're going to utilize that to just put a trail system on top of it to continue to kind of enjoy these 2 ponds that are existing right now. It'll probably be asphalt. Yes, ma'am. And the reason is because we want to make this trail system ADA accessible. And one of the ways to make that ADA accessible is by using an asphalt surface. Yes, ma'am.
Do you want the townhomes or the amenity center first?
We can start with the amenity center. Travis, if you'd like to go ahead and kick it off, we can talk through that and then he can explain the updates to the townhomes as well.
Good afternoon, board. Can everybody hear me? I'm Travis Saying. I represent America's Home for Rent. I'm the architect for the company. So the last time we were there, we really didn't change very much. We just wanted to show that this has a real modern feel to it. With a lot of board and batten, metal roofs. It is going to be painted alabaster. So we're going to provide a gym. It's going to have a workspace for our clients, and also the pool will be, right sides to the back, and it's going to show very well We feel like it's going to look really good for our clients, and it's going to be very usable. And as you can see the front. We're going to have fairly high pitches. It's all cementitious material. Columns are going to be wide. The windows will be blacked out. They're going to be has a bronze black look to them, so it'll pop out very well with the white, with the alabaster cream white. All right. And then this is just your side view, and then below it is your rear. When you're in the pool, looking out to it, we have big, large dormers in the back with metal roofs that will accentuate the the really long roof. So it kind of hides that, gives a very great view of just the rear of the house, rear of the amenity itself. All right, and this is going to be what our townhomes are going to look like. I just wanted to show, the sixplex. We have a sixplex, we have a fiveplex, a fourplex, and a threeplex. Can we go to the next screen? Yep, that's your 5. Just want to keep. Yep, your 3, and then here's a colored rendering of our amenity building. You can go ahead. Yep, and here's more of a 3D view of what it's going to look on the site with the pool, and then the townhomes around it. Yep. Okay, so if you could stop right here. So last time we were here, we had a few comments back, recommendations from the board, and so we wanted to show the new townhome design. As you can see, let's start with the left unit. We added a lot more detail to the house. We provided a metal roof over the 2 windows, and we made that whole elevation shake. The porch, added a nice looking porch with a detail with a vent that is now furred out 10 inches to kind of give some depth. And I know that some of the comments were that, it just didn't feel like some of the Somerville towns. So we went and drove around and made sure that we kind of came back with that flavor of, with that design of a nice, traditional, but yet a little bit more transitional to kind of give it a fairly new feel to it. If you look at the next unit, we have siding, and it's all cementitious. We provided dormers to kind of break that roof line up. Again, this is a porch that will be 6 feet out. So, every unit will have a nice sized porch as far as depth wise. And then the unit next to it, we provided some cool, go ahead, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought somebody was talking. And then the third unit in, you can kind of see we provided some corbels to give it some more details. And then the next unit over has just your board and batten, double windows above it, and a big large porch. And then the unit to the right of it, we heard the comments. And we took that and we added a bay window to give it some depth. And that one to the far right has it's all board and batten. All right.
What are the colors? I'm a little bit confused because the other rendering showed white and dark roofs with black roofs, basically. More like the amenity center. And then this is totally different color than what I saw before.
Yeah, so we kind of switched it up. I believe we provided, if you wouldn't mind clicking, there should be a color board that we attached with it. Let's see, whoops. Yep, there it is. Yep,
Yeah,
keep going. Yep, keep going.
So the renderings not the correct.
Yep.
not the color you-
Can everybody see that?
different places. I'm confused about what's where. I like the white and the black roofs. The other colors I'm kind of cold on.
Yes, so based on the recommendation that we got is that the board didn't want our white colored on our towns. Which we could
The white's
add
good
back
for the
in.
amenity center.
What's that?
The white's good on the amenity center.
Oh, yeah, an amenity center for sure. And it looks good on the, the apartments, the townhouses.
Yeah, this is Tim. I'm AMH's Director of Land Development. This is, I could be wrong, but this is in reference to one of the comments from the last meeting was that the white, we had a negative comment on the white and that it was not liked. So this is where this color selections came from.
That's how I remember it too.
You recall that?
White
Okay.
for the amenity and then trying to get a little more earth tone on the.
Earth tone's good.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can we look at the rendering again?
For who and where, yeah.
So that's white.
Keep going. There it is.
Go one prior.
Yeah, back up.
So I think Bill's question is, are those the colors?
That's an old, the
Yeah.
colors that you see
That's-
back there is part of what was originally commented on, actually. And then America's Home for Rent then took it to, if you flip to the next one, that's what they've then updated it to.
Mhm.
Yeah. Those renderings that you see of the amenity center and stuff like that were a part of the fly through that were shown at the last meeting.
Is this the amenity center or the end view of the townhouse?
This is the the new in-unit version that we updated to show more
Of the
details.
Of the townhouse.
Yes. So one of the comments were, we wanted to show a little more, we needed to show a little more detail. So we added shutters that were right size to the window, and we also provided we called it a shutter clip to kind of give it that feel of like, it's not a real retractable shutter, but it's it gives everybody the idea that it could be. So that's clipped onto the shutters also. And we just wanted to show the rear with the carriage garage doors, and there will be shutters on the windows.
I'm a little confused about the roof colors because the amenities center roof, like you say, Bill, is very dark, okay? And this is absolutely, totally the other way.
This is a weathered cedar, I think.
It's- That's correct. It's weatherwood.
You're okay with it?
Well, I think the idea of making the amenity center different from
That's okay.
the houses is a reasonable concept.
Yeah.
So every building will have that roof color. All the townhouses will have that roof color. And then you've got some distinctness in each frontage. All the backs look just like this, correct? Is that correct?
Yes,
All the back of the buildings are identical?
yes.
And this is Tim.
Other
again,
than the
this is
color.
deceiving a little bit. Weatherwood is a lot darker than what that photo shows.
You don't have the actual color with you. So that we're not looking at a computer color, we could know what the real.
Travis,
color
is it not on the color slide?
It should be on the color slide.
Yeah.
Can you show real quick just what the view corridor is of this rear elevation? I mean, the rear elevation is okay if you're not gonna see it.
So they're all alley fed lots.
Uh-huh. What's the plan view look like showing that?
Oh, and there's some right there. If you, we can keep, oh, if you go back one more, you can see an overview of it. There you go.
So you can't see it.
So
The alleys are tight.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
right,
So
the alley
all
would
of the
be- that's right.
townhomes are alley fed and they either face a property line that then has a buffer on it, or they face each other with an alley in between the two of them.
Okay.
Yep.
But when we saw the color scheme a minute ago, none of the colors boards that you show us have that light tan roof on them. That's what I'm confused with.
Yeah, go to the color sample board.
Before you move the slide, can we,
Get to that.
can we look at the row that's sort of diagonally on the electric easement? Which is the front on the upper or is the,
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the, what you saw there, the back side of it,
Mhm.
which faced the easement, that was the alley that faced the easement. And then the front of the townhomes faced the amenity center.
right, so how visible is the back of that roof?
The, if we look at the planting plan, you can see what has been done
Do you have enough to
as
screen it?
far as plantings go, and I can actually allow Betsy to kind of attest to that. Betsy is our landscape architect. But there's some natural growth and stuff like that within the 125-foot power easement. Nothing that we're actually touching ourselves because it's outside of our limits of disturbance. But I guess it could be somewhat visible between the threeplex that you see here across the easement to the other side.
When you're coming and going every day, you're gonna see that.
Yes, sir.
And I was hoping there'd be some way of screening that, because the power company's gonna do what the power company's gonna do,
Yes, sir.
and you can't stop them.
Hi, everyone. This is Betsy Ellingson. I'm a landscape architect. If you can go to the slide just before this one as well, you can see that there are some existing trees. You can see the yellow, the blue there. And you can also see those. So there are some existing trees, and we're also adding some planting, some lower planting, or understory trees along that as well. So hopefully that will help break up the views to the backside as well.
I think it's one more slide, Tim. No.
Yeah, I think it's broken up into those two slides. I apologize, but on slide 35 and 36, you can kind of
So
tell.
I'm not really
See
seeing.
there on the bottom left there.
I'm not really seeing any planting in there.
Right, part of that was to remain whatever existing plantings were in there rather than kind of clearing everything out and replanting. But we do have some additional plants for our open space that will help block that view.
So what she's kind of stating is the open space, which is to the planned northwest of that threeplex right there. That open space will be planted. So when you are driving the main road, it'll break up the view towards the back of these townhomes here. Now, when you're coming up the other, this secondary road here that loops around and then ties into the amenity center, that road right there, the only thing that kind of breaks up the view there is the townhomes that it will also be adjacent to that roadway. And then the existing plantings that are foliage, if you will, that sits within the 125-foot power easement. And then the other thing that Betsy spoke to was there are trees that kind of break up in between the backs of the townhomes, and there is small shrubbery that'll be planted as well in between the driveways.
Ready to move on to the houses?
Yes.
Let's move to the houses.
To the townhomes? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, yeah. What, do we review the houses, individual residential?
So the individual
John.
residential, it's not the purview of this board.
That's not our purview, I thought.
Yeah, Bill, just the townhomes and amenity center.
Townhomes and amenity center.
Yes, sir.
That's all we worried about. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the kind of the last thing that Travis wanted to touch on was the upgrade that they did to the side elevations of the townhomes. Rather than just being windows on the side, they dressed it up with the shutters.
It looked good. That looked
And I
good.
can't speak to the full architectural vocabulary, but
Does Chris Carpus have any comment?
Yeah, Chris.
Hey,
Hey,
I do have a few comments on the
what you got?
he remuted himself.
Yeah, Chris, there you go.
That's weird. All right. It says I'm driving, but I'm not. So on the amenity center, I think the amenity center looks pretty good. I'm not really sure about the shed roof over the dormers on the front. It seems kind of a long roof that I'm not sure if that really works architecturally. I appreciate.
Backside.
I think it's on both sides. They're
Talking about on
individual-
the amenity center,
Yes,
those, and that's covered with metal, whereas the rest of the roof is just shingles, right?
right. It's just a really long roof, and it's like the building looks really good, and then once that catches your eye, it doesn't let go. And I don't know if that's a great solution for dormers or not. Typically, you would see them kind of as more of a punched opening rather than a large roofed unit. But I don't think it's a huge deal. That's my comment for it.
I think it works better on the back where it's a single longer dormer than it does on the three individual dormers. And maybe we just have a single dormer on the front like we got on the back.
Yeah, I think the three are better.
Like
Because
three,
I like
they
the
relate to
three.
the windows below.
you like the three
Yes.
better? Okay.
I don't really have a problem with the windows. It's just I almost think maybe the one on the back can stay a shed.
If we
And,
go to the back elevation, that does seem a little bit.
I think what Chris is what you're getting out, that's probably
It's
It's
probably
nice,
a,
but it's sort
that's
of.
probably a 10-12
it's almost
slope.
like a
You're probably
different
wanting
style.
more like a
Yeah, I
6-12.
kind of like it.
right.
Okay with that.
The
Oh,
back has much less detail than the front anyway.
Yeah, it's a nice look. It's just incongruous with the rest of the building.
right.
And it's separated.
And as far as the townhomes go, I appreciate the work, the response from the comments from the last meeting. I think one of the things about the side elevation was that it lacked detail, and now it might be a little too busy, which, it happens. But it looks more like all the windows are kind of they seem to be a lot of different size windows and a lot of shutters, and I think some regularity on the side might be good. It's just kind of a mishmash of, and I know that all those windows are based on what's going on inside. I get that, but they seem to be kind of irregular, and I think the shutters almost accentuate the irregularity of them in some ways. But really, those are my only real comments on this. Oh, and Low Country Stuff, Aspen and Vale probably aren't the best names for trying to convince us that it's a contextual low country design, but that's okay.
So what are those shed roofs on the side elevation? What's behind there
Yeah.
to
closed
justify
part.
a roof?
I'll allow Travis. to
Travis,
answer the
you-
question.
So the shed roof was just to give it some depth on our sides. One of the comments were, it just seems like it was too flat. So we wanted to, give it a little depth.
Yeah, but if
and that's
there's
really all
not
it's for.
really something behind there you know,
It's just a
we've always
big
talked
window.
about authenticity
Yeah.
and natural. And there's a reason we live in Somerville and not Mount Pleasant. We're happy with who we are. If the building has nothing behind it, don't try and make it look like there's something there. If there's nothing there, if that room doesn't deserve a window, I wouldn't put something just
To make it
to make it, I mean,
look
that's
busier.
completely against everything we tell every
Why,
candidate.
why don't we just do?
Yeah,
away
I mean,
with the
that's
two
easy. I mean,
windows
just,
and leave
we can
the-
remove
leave
that.
the Triple window up at the gable.
That might be good.
Just do away with the two fakes. Leave the one up to gable with the shed metal roof over.
And it's an
Yeah,
end.
that's
Corbels and,
That's an easy fix for Travis.
that okay?
I think so.
Yes.
Then it
And it's an
wouldn't be
end,
so
you know, the
busy.
ends aren't supposed to
Yeah.
be the front.
Sure. Right.
And it kind of is, should be a truthful reflection of what the room is behind it.
Right. Agreed.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I had just one more concern. If you can go back to the typical elevation, and these are homes for rent. And if I lived on the right side unit, I'd be like, awesome, I got a bay window. And then if I lived in the middle unit, I'd be awesome, I have some brackets. And the left, I have and then I look at the two guys in the middle, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't get those. You know, those are kind of like, they got nothing. They're just like, oh.
Mhm.
Are these
Yeah.
rental or sale?
They're for rent.
They're
For
for
rent.
rent.
Yes, sir.
So your rent.
Hey, they get neighbors on both sides. That's something.
Yeah, you have me for a neighbor. That's not a good thing. But I just feel like, and I know you're trying to, everybody can't be a star, but when you look at the really great row houses in the US and Georgetown and Boston, and there's a few other places that have great townhouses, Charleston somewheres, but not as much. You know, everyone has something special, and some are, you know, the original owners had more money, so they did more stuff, but everything, all the row houses have something. And I just look at that and think, can you give them like something that, you know, the dormers, I guess, it's a little bit of something, but that whole building is very flat. It's got the simplest, most, I'm gonna say boring siding, because it's the same siding all the way up and down. It just doesn't seem to have anything. And that's my only real criticism of the design of those two brown units. Just seem a little bit, I guess the one on the right center at least has a covered porch. That's a nice
Has the
feature.
full porch.
Maybe say, yeah, we've got a covered porch, but what does that poor other guy have that's cool?
Well, they've got shingle siding, they got board and batten, and they got horizontal lap siding.
No, I'm talking about the second from the left, that unit.
Second from the left is
Yeah.
lap siding, yeah.
Right, but it doesn't really have a, you know, it's somebody's home. And I think when people move in here, the trend I see is more and more people are gonna be renting for life, especially if they have a nice rental. So this could be people in there for 5-10 years, having kids and everything else. I just feel that one unit is kind of like the dud. And can we make something nice for everybody?
And I think the intent here is to have all these different from each other. I mean, you could throw another porch up there, but then it's gonna look like the fourth unit, or you could throw a metal roof over it, then it's gonna look like the first unit. The intent is to have each of these look different. And in my opinion, having been to Georgetown, that second one looks very Georgetownish. I mean, I think it stands out, looks good.
Georgetown,
Just-
like, not Georgetown, South Carolina.
No,
No, the real,
Well,
yeah, they don't
I'm
look
sure
anything like
there
that.
probably is some in Georgetown, so it might look like that. But no, it's very, it's just kind of got that old colonial feel to it.
Well, again, we're just stating opinions. You guys can take that advice or opinion. One.
No, yeah, I understand. I'm just saying,
Person
we
board.
just based off of the comments from last time, that was why we just tried to give each unit its own identity.
Chris, you got any more comments?
No, I'm good.
Anybody like to make a motion or any more discussion?
How many units? You remember how many units, how many townhouse units?
There's 124 townhomes.
And sidewalks throughout, as you're showing,
Say that again. Sorry.
sidewalks everywhere. Sidewalks.
Yeah.
all
Yes,
through
sir.
the development.
There's either 5-foot sidewalks or there is an 8-foot multi-use trail
Mhm.
that is connected to all of these units.
Well, we hadn't talked about lighting or garbage disposal,
Yeah, trash, where's trash?
trash, how you
Will they have it picked
dumpster
up in the
enclosures,
alley
we can hit
behind
that
the
real
garage?
quick. You got,
No dumpster enclosures. There'll be rollouts.
everybody has their own garbage can,
Yes, sir.
roll out,
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay.
Rollouts.
okay,
Yep.
like a, just like residential deal.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And they store them in the back, I take it,
Yes, sir.
their cans.
Where are the HVAC units? Are they all in the attic or they can't all be there? So
Well, they're gonna be split HVAC systems,
so
correct?
where's the outside unit?
So I'll allow Travis or Tim to speak to that.
Travis, you got it, or you want me to?
You can go, Tim, but they're gonna be in the back.
Yeah, and they'll be screened with natural vegetation. Am I right, Travis?
That's correct. With a
Yeah.
bollard.
Can you show us that? Can you show, where would they be?
I don't think they have anything to show us, because you can't, looking at what you see in the back, there's no place to put them.
There isn't. That's why I went over there.
Yeah, they'll be in between the like, can you keep going back a little bit? I want to see if I actually put it on the plans. Let's see. Keep going. Yep. Right there. Yep. Can you zoom in on the first floor? Just a little bit. Yeah. So they'll be kind of in between like that
Mhm.
with the two bollards to screen them, make sure nobody hits them.
So they'd have to be split units then, because there's no way you could use a package unit.
No, they'd all be split.
They'd have to be split.
Yeah, air handler in the attic and then condenser outside.
Okay.
And lighting the development, is that gonna be a power company function, or how are you gonna handle that?
Yes, sir. So it's being worked through Dominion. We actually provided the American Homes for Rent selection as far as lighting is concerned. That's just kind of the breakdown of
Okay.
their program and their benefits, but the lighting itself is what was shown on the other sheet.
Mhm.
The only other thing is that the mail kiosk / bus stop that's provided in this package as well.
The mail kiosk, where is it? Can you show us that?
And I'll allow American Homes for Rent to speak to this. They actually worked with Mooney Design Studio in order to formulate this.
Go ahead, Travis.
Okay, so we wanted to give just something different and something really fun for our customers to kind of, have a center point to kind of congregate, hang out, and kind of enjoy the space. And so you can kind of see we have outdoor seating. We're going to be doing T-Rex wood decking. So we want to make sure that this type of wood doesn't ever rot. It's going to be there and look nice for years and years and years. We're going to provide a little bit of, we call it amphitheater seating, and then you can also see the mail kiosk. But and this is just more of a floor plan that points out to what's going on. Yep, and you can kind of see now the design of the roof to kind of give it a little, we call it a little modern flair, but just something that will look really nice in the community. And also you can kind of see, we kind of put the lake back there so you can kind of get that view of what you're going to be looking at. And then you can kind of see, the design of the little plexiglass that kind of showed you from when it might rain kind of sideways a little bit.
I think one more slide down will show
Yep.
the,
I think that was it.
okay.
Any further comments? They're asking for final approval.
I know I keep asking this, I'm just really trying to understand it. What color is the roof on the townhouses? Is it that light brown? Or is it what you're showing on the cover?
Right there. See the weatherwood?
Weathered wood, so it's not brown, it's kind of a gray. Is that a true color or?
It's more like this one than that one. Each of these screens is
I
different.
know, every screen is different.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd have to, know what they look like to get an answer, because you
Right.
can't get it from this.
And there's not really a great option with shingles. There's gray, there's black, and there's shades of brown. They make other colors, but they're really
Yeah.
prolific. In brown, if we're going with earth tone buildings, I don't know if you really want to use a gray or a black.
I don't want to see black.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's just there's a,
But I
there's-
think that light.
This
If
is
it
not
gets
a
brown
light,
that
this,
we have is not.
it's darker than what you see here. On this furniture.
Yeah. My personal house is weatherwood, and it's a little bit darker, like he's saying, than this. It's just hard to pick up in a cut and pasted
You'll
picture.
like them.
it's,
Okay. It is very helpful if we have exact samples.
especially for
Yes.
final approval.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, just for
Yeah.
the board's knowledge, America's Home for Rent unfortunately couldn't be here today. They were originally told that they weren't going to be able to be heard today.
I know.
And so they canceled their plans from Atlanta, which is what made it tough. Or else they would have brought all of their material with them.
Yeah. And Aaron, I can bring by all these samples for the board if they want to physically touch them. But yes, we have all this in samples.
I don't think it's gonna matter. yet.
But I mean, weatherwood's a common. It's probably your most common. Between weatherwood and onyx black are probably your two most common. You could probably look out the window that you're in and see weatherwood on a
I
house
think
or
you'll
building
like
across
them
the
when you
street.
see 'em.
Well, with that endorsement,
Mhm. Hey, y'all want final approval?
They're asking for final approval, yeah. So we need a motion.
what about Chris Carpus? You've been very quiet.
No, Chris has been fine.
Well, okay. I think based on the comments that we've given them and the feedback we've given them, that I can, in good conscience, make a motion for final approval.
Yeah, second. Any discussion? If no discussion, we have a second.
Sure.
Yeah, on the spot.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to be so negative. I mean, this is not, I think it's a good project overall.
Yeah.
It is.
Is it a
That's where I'm
great
coming from.
project? No, it's not, but I think this area is ready for rental homes. I think we need it.
We need it.
And I've had concerns with the density, the single way in and out, having 6 units next to each other, and I've expressed all of those things. But in the end, I think they're making a reasonable attempt to make nice buildings, nice sidewalks, nice trails, hopefully some nice planting that'll mature in 5 or 10 years. And that in the end, the only thing I could see really kind of hurting the development is if the parking behind the building isn't enough and that cars end up on the streets. And you can go through any subdivision in this area. And when you go there, when there's no cars, I say, oh, this is a really nice neighborhood. When you come in, 5 o'clock on a Friday and there's just cars everywhere. And it really detracts from the overall appearance. That's nothing you can do. I think you've given 2 cars per apartment. And based on the renderings, it looks like it's going to be a nice place to live.
Well, they can put 2 cars in each garage and then 2 or 3 cars in each driveway.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel that same way driving down 17 in the morning and afternoons.
And then the other thing about this is the only visible part of this project is the amenity center from Dairy Road.
Mhm.
The rest of it is
Yeah.
out and by itself, isolated.
The design of the roadways actually allow for on-street parking. So where the roadway is around these townhomes, there is on-street parking provided. It's either double loaded on either side with on-street parking, or if it fronts townhome or single-family homes, the opposite side from the single-family homes has some on-street parking in order to alleviate the crowding of roadways with cars.
But again, I think it's a good development. It's not, and it does, I think in the end, it is going to contribute to Somerville overall by providing a product that we don't currently have. And
I think
which we,
that's where I'm coming from, Greg. They've been responsive and, it's not fantastic, but it's nice. So that's the basis of my motion.
so I seconded it. We're gonna vote.
We have any further discussion? Ready for a vote? In favor, aye.
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 4 ayes, you have it. Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate the board for their
Thank you,
time.
everybody. Thank you, board.
Well,
Thank y'all.
thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, guys.
Next is
The second item under old business is a request for conceptual review of the Alta North Maple Street proposed 338 apartment development on 18.334 acres. This was, again, they're requesting conceptual review. The property is zoned GB, general business. And this was last at the board at the June meeting. Following your staff's comments, the site conceptually meets requirements. The proposal includes 327 units and 6 buildings, an amenity center and 8 garage buildings. There are 525 parking spaces for 1.61 spaces per unit. Amenities include a pool, walking trails, and dog park. A grading and utility plan, landscape plan, tree preservation plan, tree removal permit, and full architectural drawings are still required. The conceptual architectural images generally meet UDO requirements and include a mix of materials. And just give me a second. This is the general location, basically on North Maple Street, just south of Old Dairy, across the street from where we were just discussing. So odd shaped lot. Here's the render.
So you guys are stuck with me again. So this is actually across North Maple and down Old Dairy from the other development that we were just discussing. So we came to a conceptual DRB meeting back in June. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
And at that time, we received quite a few comments, a lot of good comments from the board. So we took that and we actually went back to the drawing board and really started to relay out this whole site. There is actually a site plan of what it looked like before within this set. And then we can flip back to this one just to kind of show the difference that we have come up with between the 2 layouts. Go back, keep going down. It might be right there. So, yep, that was it. So this was the layout that we originally came to the board with, a very large 4-story building in the middle, 3 that fronted North Maple, and then a carriage tile building that was also towards the middle of the site. So we went back to the drawing board after hearing the board's comments, and we came back for another conceptual DRB because we really want to make sure that this development, we do it right, and we hear the comments of the board as we design this. So with that in mind, we can go back to the site plan, and Betsy Ellingson, who is our landscape architect and also land planner from Seaman Whiteside, between her and then the architect, Mr. Glenn Allison with 2PA, they work together to really come up with a site plan that we feel works a lot better on this site. And it fits quite a bit better with, like Mr. Greg brought up, the abnormal property lines, if you will. One of the ways that we created more space on this site is we are actually going to do underground detention. So we took out one of those ponds, and then we're allowed us space to kind of move these buildings in a way that created more of an open space, more of a feeling, and at the same time allowed us opportunities for better parking, but also parking and so forth. So with that, I'm actually going to open it up for Betsy to kind of speak a little bit further about the site, and then we're going to roll into Mr. Glenn Allison talking about the architecture of this site. So Betsy, all yours.
All right. Sounds great. Again, this is Betsy Ellingson with Seaman Whiteside, landscape architect for the project. And as Aaron said, we really listened to the comments from last time. We kind of started from scratch. The big building that was in the center, and Glenn Allison and the folks, the architects, can talk about that as well. But the 4-story buildings have been broken up into 2 buildings, and they're now further to kind of plan southeast to the bottom of the plan there. And then the buildings along North Maple, we understood that you didn't really care for that kind of solid building look going down North Maple. So we broke that up and actually opened up the clubhouse and the pool area to kind of draw the eye into the site a little bit more. And again, that clubhouse kind of moved from the entrance more to the center of the site. But we've emphasized it internally with a little median. And I think we created some good walking areas and interconnectivity. We have another little pocket park between the L-shaped building there on the corner and building 2. And so again, trying to create some pockets come in from North Maple. But and I think that L-shaped building there on the corner kind of emphasizes the corner, kind of holds it down. But that, and again, the architects can speak to that, but I think just site-wise, we really did try to listen and try to make it more of an attractive, more site-sensitive project. And as Aaron said, we've taken away the one smaller pond and created a dog park down there for the residents. And again, I think we've hopefully addressed your concerns from last time. I think we've got a good plan moving forward, and I'll let the architects speak more to what they have done.
Glenn Allison, I'm the architect with Pool and Pool. If you could go to one more up. Sorry, one more. Okay, so as Seaman Whiteside said, this was the first site plan that we had, and there was concern about the size of the 4-story building, which is the C building here. So as Betsy said, we've broken that up into 2 smaller buildings, still 4 stories, and moved it to the back. The other concern was pitched roofs on the 3-story buildings. So we looked at that and tried to come up with something that's a little more familiar in the downtown Somerville. So we've gone to low slope roofs. And then the 3 buildings paralleling Maple Street here, there was concern about that. So in the new plan, we turned the middle one, or the two middle ones, the new site plan. So the narrow end faces Maple Street and creates a pocket park. If you can go to the next slide, please. And there you see, the other thing we've done here is, as Betsy said, was sort of anchor the corner, the L-shaped building. So building 1 through 4 are 3-story buildings, 5 and 6 are 4 stories, and then the club is about 2 stories, story and a half. And in between buildings. Next slide. So just some of the inspiration in the bays that different materials sort of delineate them, sort of a muted color scheme, and using different materials to accentuate the bays. Next slide. So this is the perspective from Old Dairy Road and Maple Street. You see the corner building, or the corner building, the L building. And one of the things we've done to try and engage the street is going to create on the levels 1 and 2 kind of porches, if you will. And then as you go down the road, you see the narrow end of building 2 on this slide. And again, the biggest thing is the flat roof. So we've gone to a low slope roof, parapet line, and emphasize sort of the corner and midpoints. Again, trying to accentuate the bays and break up the buildings. Next slide. And this is just kind of an example of the muted color schemes that we're talking about. Using sort of a dark parapet top to kind of really accentuate the parapet. Next slide. This is a perspective looking down through the pool courtyard at the amenity building with the 4-story building behind it. And again, this is, the view here is framed by corner balconies. Again, that are kind of addressing the street. Next slide. Again, another just ideas for color. We're just asking for conceptual, so hopefully the next round we'll get deeper into colors and that sort of thing. Next slide. This is going to what this is the long building at the other end of the site from the L building. Again, just trying to create sort of 2-story brick to bring the scale down at the back. And accentuating the base to break up the length. Next. This is looking down the entry road with 4 stories on the left, and then the 3-story buildings on the right. 3-story building is the end of the L building on the corner. And then the same view opposite end, standing close to the pond at this point. 4-story on the right, and then the 3-story clubhouse on the left. And these are just elevations, flat elevations, showing the buildings kind of as the whole building. You can see the parapet's broken up, and then the expression of bays. And we can go through each one of these, or it's the same sort of vocabulary for each building. So with that, take questions or comments.
Right, right.
I think it's a huge improvement since the first one, which is great. I think from a conceptual approach, I like the look. I think you've got a lot of work to do to make it a final But I think that, and we could talk about some of those issues, but I think for the rest of the board, it's an issue of, do we want to go with sort of what we might call contemporary versus a traditional on this part of town? I think that's the right look. That's just my opinion. A lot of people would say, no, this is an entrance to Somerville, make it look old timey. But I think this is a little more, it's an honest expression of, this is a apartment complex built in 2022. Why try and make it look like it was built?
I think it looks like the old Holly Inn, which is out of George Miller Country Club. It's been torn down for about 15 years now. But it was a white stucco building with,
I like the white.
yeah, there's a white, it had this look.
Yeah.
It didn't have this roof exactly, but then it became Stuckey Brothers Furniture Store
Okay.
after it was an inn. But
Yeah. So I think a modern, I'm
there's precedence for it here in Somerville.
I'm good with the more modern approach. I like the big windows. It doesn't make it look like it's a cheap apartment. There's some architectural features I'm not real crazy about, but I think if we could, since it is conceptual, just make sure the site plan's awesome, I think. I mean, you did about everything you could do with that site, and yeah, you've got the massing and the proportion of building to parking lot to, it's a good project, I think.
That's good. Chris Carpus.
Hey, I agree with that. I do think that the more contemporary look is good. I like the slope roofs. The colors are probably, it looks a little sterile as it is right now, but I'm not 100% sure that's a bad thing either. It looks sterile to me. Every time I switch screens, I think I mute myself, but apparently you can hear my dog, which is great. I do like the response to the last meeting. I don't really mind having a longer building facing Maple, but I just wasn't really fond of all of the long sides facing Maple. And so kind of breaking it up and having a long side and some end elevations is pretty good. And the corner element is good. It's a pretty big scale, so I think that it's going to need a lot of green stuff to kind of bring it down to earth. But I think it looks pretty good.
I just want to ask about along North Maple. I mean, literally, all you're going to see on your property is a big building, one little driveway and another big building. I mean, are you going to really see the swimming pool, or is it behind a building? Right there. It's hard to tell on the rendering that that's happening.
And that rendering shot is taken in 6 feet.
Okay. Well, the pool is nice, but of course it'll be fenced, but for safety. I mean, we're not looking at the fence. It's big.
You can see the buildings in purple there.
I see now. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So you got
Okay. Thank you. That's much better.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the length of the buildings for long.
So you split that up. Okay. When I was looking at the rendering, it looked to me like that all was tied in together, the first, but now I see you've got some greenery between them and shrubbery. So the massiveness is not as much as it appeared. Okay.
Yes, there will be a linear park really along North Maple with a walkway and greenery, so that will help as well.
And what's the setback from North Maple?
From the road.
I think if you go down to
I think we've got 30 feet from the right of way for that green area.
And is this from the back of the sidewalk is 30? Is the sidewalk in the right of way?
So the sidewalk, the
The sidewalk is in the buffer.
Yep.
Right?
that sidewalk sits within our property, within the buffer.
It's about 30 feet.
Yes, it's 30 feet from the right of way.
Mhm.
So it'll be
Maple
even
Street there
further
would-
from the road.
Maple Street will be 3 lanes wide there, correct? Or 4, no, it's gonna be 4 lanes to Highway 78. It will be, Maple Street will be wide in the 4 lanes all the way to Highway 78. So what you'll see is 4 lanes. And I don't know if they should extend that 12-foot wide walking and bicycle lane along parallel with, have you accounted for that, or do you know about that, or what's the story on that?
So we're aware of the widening that's happening. We're working with the town of Somerville as far as
Right,
how this development will tie into that.
correct.
And so the objective here is to allow this pocket park to be a part of the sidewalk or path, if you will, that will go up and down.
Well, right now on Nexton Parkway and North Maple Street, they have a 12-foot bicycle walking path.
On the
Parallel.
next inside.
No, on the, all the way.
Okay.
And I would expect that would be part of the 4-lane widening when that happens. That would be continued all the way down to Highway 78. But I don't know that.
Yes, the path, and I'm not sure which side it's gonna be
It's
on.
on both sides, isn't it?
No, I believe, and I could be wrong as well. I'm not involved with that directly, but
I think it's only. on
there's
this
usually a
side,
path
yeah.
on one side and a
Yeah,
standard sidewalk on the other. They might do 2 10-foot paths on both sides.
that's something to look out for, to get that tied down, that 12-foot asphalt bike path, walking path.
We've been working with them on both sides, so we're
We're constantly in touch with the town as
Mhm.
far as how that affects this development and the developments all around.
Well, when you come back to us, just show it accurately and have that confirmed,
Sure,
with the town.
I do believe it's actually showed pretty accurately right here.
Okay, so all the trees you're planting aren't gonna get cut
Okay.
down when they do that, because it's on your property. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it'll be nice.
I think it'll be magnificent, and since we don't,
Mhm.
this is conceptual, we don't vote, and I think we've all had our comments.
Well, I think, I agree. I think it's gonna pass. But when you come back, I would like to talk about when you come back for final, if that's okay, for a couple of minutes. So
You can if you think you can.
I think if you,
It wouldn't hurt you. I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
yeah, we're
If
not
you
gonna
decided to
guarantee.
come back that way.
Yeah, if it's good, if we've done that on other projects. Now, something of this size, just as a formality, we're probably gonna want to do all 3. But I think, can we go back and look at some of the colored perspectives? To me, what's a little bit jarring is the construction above the top floor of windows, where it seems like from where that mouse is down has a lot of detail. From where that is up, it seems like it's overly simplified. Just the development of it, it's just it's almost too simple at the top, and it's too much in the same plane. And if you go back to the courtyard perspective that showed the swimming pool, when I looked at the back of that, see on the
Yeah.
back, it seems like that parapet's going up and down against the skyline. It's a lot more interesting. When I'm looking at the buildings on the side, it looks like it's just a straight line. There's no up and down like you have in the back. And I think that view to the back is more attractive because it looks like there's something coming towards you and then there's something set back, and it's a lot more interesting.
And Greg, we're looking at the 4-story building behind the pool, the amenity center
Yeah,
too.
that one is.
So it's a street away that we're looking at.
But the point I'm trying to make is it's not a continuous just line of parapet. Break up the center. The other piece, if you can go back to that prior perspective, what in Charleston, they call it's not a niche, it's a hyphen. You know, if you're intentionally trying to separate the buildings, the one on the far right, which you can barely see on this drawing, is I think the correct width. It looks like it's, you know, maybe 10 or 12 feet wide. Versus the one we're looking in the foreground here, looks like it's about 24 feet wide. And the reason I mention that is if you're probably gonna have to get a plan to see what I'm talking about, but if yeah, it's so different from the rest of the project, which again, sometimes people do that intentionally to say what we're trying to do is make a visual break between two parts of a building to the same building. But in this case, it's too wide to really do that. And it's out of context with architecturally, I think it's just too different from the other parts of the project. And I think those corners, that corner, I think would be stronger if you just took that form all the way up instead of having the other.
Instead of that cap.
Yeah, if that went up the full height, I think that would be something to at least look at. But the main concern is I think it's very successful from the top of the third floor windows down, from the top of the third floor windows up. I'm like, it just seems to not, it just seems too simple. Well, it's just so much better than what, when I saw it, I was like, wow, you're definitely on the right track. But, you know, it's needs a little bit more, but I'm very happy with what you guys have done since last time.
Any further comments, anybody? Any more comments, anybody? Chris?
None here.
Okay, I think that's it. See you next time, next trip.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for your time. We really do appreciate it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, for our process, preliminary has to be applied for. So like if you wanted to combine it, you'd apply for preliminary and final if you felt that you were prepared for that. But preliminary is the only step that's specifically required.
Thank you. Okay, next is 309. It's actually South Maple Street, not North Maple.
This is where I sign off, recuse myself. Hope everybody has a good evening.
Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
So the first item under new business is, as Bill pointed out, 309 South Maple. This is a request for preliminary approval for a new multi-tenant commercial building, flex space. The property zoned LI light industrial. It is currently a vacant office building, and this is their first time in front of the board. This is the location, the old West Rock office building that's been vacant now for a good while, as long as I've been here. Sawmill, so on and so forth. At this point, I can turn it over. I should probably give staff comments. Based on these staff comments, the site will require approval of a reduction of the required 60-foot landscape buffer requirement adjacent to the neighborhood residential properties. So that would be in this vicinity here. The applicant is requesting 30 feet along the southeast property line to accommodate the required detention. The closest building is over 70 feet from the property line. Existing vegetation in the buffer areas will remain and be used to satisfy the buffer planting requirement. Right-of-way acquisition for North Maple Street improvements have already been taken and all required front buffers are applied correctly. Sidewalk will be installed as part of the Maple Street improvements across the entire frontage. Proposed landscape materials meet the minimum planting size requirements. There is no minimum parking requirement for this type of proposed uses, though other commercial retail uses are permitted in LI zoning. There are 107 parking spaces proposed for 54,000 square feet. This is approximately 1.98 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is very close to the general commercial / entertainment requirement of 2 per 1,000. A tree removal permit is required. Photometrics and a sign plan are still required to be submitted. Architecture includes a mix of materials. The proposed buildings are 21 feet tall. I can turn it over to the applicant at this time.
Hi, my name is Greg Owens, and I'm the property owner of 309 North Maple, South Maple. We're proposing 3 buildings totaling 54,000 square feet. I'll be presenting the architectural portion, and my engineer will be discussing the civil portion of this project. Can we go to the first rendering? So those of you who are probably familiar with this, this site is directly across from the lumber mill on North Maple. One of the things we tried to do with the front facade here was to create a presence along the street. We're using a variety of materials, wood and metal to incorporate what you see across the street, because this is a light industrial property. We're across from a heavy industrial user. But we're also bringing in brick to soften that facade and create storefronts. And there's also some recessed wood paneling here to sort of differentiate across the frontage of the building. We're also stepping down the top of the roof line from the streetscape from 21 feet down to 19 feet in the center. And you'll see some additional wood accenting in the center portion of the building. Metal awnings here, pretty traditional. But the idea was that, we wanted to create something of interest and not a boring design here. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see what's proposed at the rear with roll-up doors and man doors adjacent. The tenant mix here is really a variety of users, office, retail. It's something that the town desperately needs, more space for small businesses to locate. Next slide, please. The top of this slide, you'll see we're addressing the side elevation of the building, which I think is important in context along North Maple, adding a glass storefront there and that additional brick enhancement there along the sides. And we're also carrying some additional metal paneling along the back, along with windows to further address the side. The corner of the building does carry that wood accent both on the front and the side. I understand that it's important to not leave a blank facade on the side, and so I think this does a good job of creating the side and bringing it into the forefront of the project itself. Next slide. I mentioned earlier about the variety of materials you'll see at the top of this slide. It gives you also a direct head-on perspective of how it would look from the streetscape. The materials are indicated there in the top, as well as those that are in the rear. I'd like to orient each of you to this site in that there is There is no through road behind this site. There are only adjacent property lines to the rear of me, so there's no cars that could, other than those tenants that are in these buildings that would go behind this site in terms of just through traffic. And is that the last slide? For this? Okay, this gives you a sense of the tenant layout in terms of you know, how we'll be, you know, demising the space and how that fits into the front storefronts.
Yep.
This is where that old wooden building is. Is that the same site?
It's brick. And
What's on there now?
it's been used by the fire department and the police department recently for exercises.
Yeah, so that the bottom of the slide there shows the existing office building. To my knowledge, it's been vacant for over 6 years.
So you're going to take that down and build this? Is that
Yes, sir. Yeah,
okay.
that's going to be.
That's where I thought it was. And can we look at the site plan again? Just to make sure. So that building is where the long vertical building is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah.
immediately over top of it.
And then are you bumping out into, it looks like the building on the left is,
Well, the site is actually in irregular shape, so that's still part of my property.
okay.
We're not encroaching on other property.
Is that a power line that runs at an angle along your rear property line?
Currently, there are 2 utility poles on the rear of the property line.
Okay.
Tim, can you zoom out one so we can see the context a little bit?
That one?
So the existing building to the north of it, is there a lot of vegetation that hides the back of the building currently? And will it be staying there?
Currently, there's vegetation. There's big time all the way through here.
Yeah.
But it's going to change as it is sold and developed.
Mhm. Yeah. And is there an elevation, Maple Street elevation looking at all 3 buildings together from the street? Let's look at that.
No, so my plan with this project is the building I'm showing you is the building that fronts North Maple and is parallel to. The idea is that the first building on the left will be different than the 2 that are perpendicular. And given the process of leasing tenant spaces, I'm not building all 3 at the same time. My intent was to come back to this board and seek approval for the design concepts to the second and the third. I will say that I have had discussions with my architect in that our intent is to carry forward the design schemes from the first building, but obviously there are limitations in that a building that fronts totally and a building that is perpendicular to will have different design cues and material schemes simply because they're different.
But you're just looking for approval for the one on the left, right?
Yes,
now.
sir.
And this is conceptual?
Preliminary requested.
So there was no conceptual, okay.
It's going to be difficult to get away with that rear elevation on the next 2 buildings. You can do it, you can probably get away okay on this first building, but the second 2, probably not.
Yeah, can we look at that?
You're gonna have to dress them up some.
Yeah, can we look at the elevation again? And I realize you're across the street from a sawmill, which is nothing you can do about. I just see no architectural merit at all in that elevation, 0. Especially something facing Maple Street. I just don't see any contribution to the Somerville fabric of putting that on a main entry into town. I think it's terrible.
Well,
Just
Baum's Temple is
architecturally.
next door to this. If you ever seen Baum's Temple?
No, but I drive by this almost every day.
Okay, well, you know, Baum's Temple in their parking lot and they're
It's
two ugly buildings. and-
it's a tough area, but when we look at the, Azalea Square area, it's the same issue. There's a lot of garbage that has been built through there through time. You can't do that, but when something new comes along, we want to have a certain standard. And I look at this and I said, it doesn't even look like a building to me. I don't even know what it is.
I kind of like this one.
Well, again, that's why we're here, because everybody has, a different aesthetic. And I just want to get out. I really dislike it.
Well, for the use, I think it's got some merit, but for what I think a lot of us consider kind of the new Main Street into Somerville, this doesn't seem like a building that would be on Main Street. If this were on 17A, this would look totally out of place. And I think I'm hesitant if this is the appropriate look for new Main Street. That's my biggest pushback.
Well, I think it certainly, obviously those that know the site, it has its challenges. It was a site that sat on the market over a year and nobody wanted it. I took on the challenge. It's directly across from a mill. It's zone light industrial. My zoning across the street. My neighbor is heavy industrial. I'm here to collaborate and try to put the best product forward. I think hopefully the committee can respect that I'm coming my first pass with something that is substantial, that I'm not just putting up the lowest common denominator for the town, that there was good faith put into the plan. But I don't know how to provide a stepped up or upscale product in a light industrial zone.
Well,
because-
not necessarily upscale. Well, first of all, I think you are providing a needed product. I'm hoping there is a market for that. It's all about building small business, letting small business grow, move into their own thing. So I think as a space, this would be a good contributor to our community, because I think we need something like this. I just think we need to think about, and I agree, these aren't cheap materials. So you're not trying to put up like some junky thing. It's just the way these materials are assembled. I think they could be thought about a little bit differently and recomposed so that it actually looked like.
I think we ought to look at the streetscape. You start at Highway 78 with Spinks. Then you come down to Roberts Building that we've approved 2 years ago, which are similar to this, very similar to this. And then you've got the vacant land that I guess Capstone might still own. And then you've got this property and parcel. Brick, is there a brick house there? Oh, no, well, that's past, yeah, going towards the railroad tracks. The brick house, there's a vacant lot next to the
Yeah.
brick house, but you got the church and it's vacant mess and everything
Yeah.
else. And
It's a challenge.
no matter what you do with this site, it's not gonna make that street look any better.
Well, I think
You don't want it to look worse. It'll actually help it by getting rid of the abandoned building. And I mean, that abandoned building it was condemned. There was mold issues and everything else. So that's why they quit using the thing, Westfago or Capstone. And it's a mess. But I don't dislike the design. I think the design for flex space, I think is pretty good. And
I have a
considering
thought
it's flex space.
is, you could go to the site plan again.
That's what I wanted to see. Thank you.
Landscape plan would be even better. A little biased though.
I don't know if we have one.
I think
Oh, we
that,
do.
How do you come off the
I
road
think
and
the-
where's that parking?
Yeah, I
That's,
think,
that's what I'm worried
I
about.
think the problem this has is in the site plan. I don't think it's as necessarily the architecture,
Mm-mm.
because if there were a street, if you completed the street and made it look like it's walkable, there's a sidewalk. I'm not saying put a park in front of it, but make it look like a nice street. That would go a long way. And to do that, you'd have to increase the amount of landscaping you're doing between the curb and the street on your property. You have to put more landscaping, and when I say landscape, I mean, say trees like crepe myrtles or Chinese elms or something between the parking lot and the building, and really soften the look of the building, because all we're seeing is that building, and it's got a 3-foot strip or 5-foot strip or whatever it is, and it's just too tight. Now, I realize that's going to make your square footage of your building smaller, but I think if you really design the impression along the street as well thought out and articulated as you did the building, it'd be more successful, because you're going to drive by and you're going to see the paper mill on the right. On the left, you're going to see, street trees, a little bit more lush landscaping. You're going to see maybe there needs to be a wall along the parking lot, maybe, that is kind of screening the parking lot. When I say wall, I mean a 3-foot brick wall, then parking, and then more, just break up the building facade with more vertical elements like trees. And I think it'd be more successful. I think for me, then I could kind of get behind the architecture a little bit more. Did that make sense?
It does. Obviously,
It's soften.
Yeah,
just trying to digest it.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure everyone that comes in here thinks they're playing out of the gate is like, let's approve it now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But I respect the opinions and certainly take all the commentary in.
Well, I think Bill is right. That stretch of road has a challenge, but I think it's because it was never really designed. That's, I call it the main street, but it needs to be designed like a main street. And that, I think, could happen as each one of these parcels is developed. Maybe instead of a 5-foot walk, maybe it's an 8-foot walk. I don't know. But it's just designed like a walkable path, and there actually is a lot of foot traffic along this road and from the community that would work here, but also already walks down to the Sphinx,
To the Sphinx, yeah.
and walks back. And this road is going to get more traffic, so it's kind of, I can't put a roadway design on you, but we can let's really talk about that semi-public realm along the front.
Well, for the benefit of everyone, the portion of North Maple here will be single lane each way. So I know
It's going to be 3 lanes.
3.
Yeah, 3. It's going to be a center lane and 2 travel lanes. But it's going to be 3. And then when you get to,
So there's no median? There's
no median,
There's no raised curve?
no raised curve, no median.
Okay.
So it's going to, instead of 4 lanes, like the other side of 78, it's going to be 3 lanes and then extended through Richardson all the way to Parsons. But it's going to be 3 lanes. So there's going to be sidewalk probably involved in that too, Tim.
Yes.
Done by the state or the town when that 3 lanes is put in. And they're too late, about 2 years late putting it in right now, but one of these days it's going to happen. But I've got drawings on it, so I've, because I've got property around there and I'm interested in it.
What does Chris Kirpus think about the architecture?
He liked it,
Left.
he designed it.
I guess from my vantage point, can we, I don't want to leave here with guessing what you like, what you don't like. Can we start with the building itself and say, in terms of how the building, forget the materials, just how the building looks from how the roof line is stepped?
Sure. I think it's really heavy. It's visually heavy. It's ponderous. The canopies are just unrelenting and huge. And there's no sense of brightness, optimism, excitement about a new venture, success, brightness, summer happiness. It's just really, it looks like drudgery when I come up here.
But that's
You're-
what this thing across the street looks like.
No, well, but let's think about, how can you, like, what cues could you take? I would say, well, it's a wood mill. They make wood. Could you make more? You have some wood trim here, but, could these canopies be wooden? Or at least look like wood instead of dark bronze or black? How can you celebrate this idea that I'm across from an old industrial thing? They make a great product. Everybody loves wood. How can this thing be made to be more visually light? It's very, very heavy. And I like brick in general, but I think brick buildings that are a little bit more vertical tend to work well in this area. Horizontal brick buildings tend to look like, no, they just look like warehouse stuff. So you need some verticality. I think some more variety. I would like to see either more glass or a nice quality metal panel, something that speaks to the future of what entrepreneurship can look like in our community. And to me, the ability to have a showcase piece and say, it's like an incubator. And we're encouraging our residents, who therefore hopefully encourage the children who grow up here to say, what's that? Oh, this is where we start businesses. And this is where we innovate and make new stuff or provide a new service. That's all really exciting and really great for what we're trying to do, especially in these new corridors. And I look at this and I see, well, it's 1980s and, we didn't have computers then. And I guess we had Word at that time and that was it. And the Pong game and, it was just drudgery. I mean, I like that time, but I don't want to live that again. I want to see things that are about new in the future and optimism, excitement, airiness, lightness. And I don't see any of that in here.
Would it,
I just want to comment, Greg. I respect you because you're an architect and you're so much smarter about this than I am. But I don't look at the building and think it's massive or heavy. I really don't see that. I see crispness. I see an attempt to add different materials so that it isn't so long and obtrusive. I think with proper landscaping, it could be softened a good bit. I'm a little concerned about how you're going to get the other two buildings in there, but I think your idea is good. And I think the materials actually represent what's across the street. And we're not going to ever change what's across the street. So we might as well complement it and let it look like it's supposed to be together rather than, oh, that's ugly, don't look like that, I like the way it looks. I just think it needs some landscaping and needs some softened with that and make sure that it's a little more friendly to the walking community. You're going to have to do that because people are going to walk along there. So.
Do you think that there would be restaurants or bistros or bars and stuff like that?
They don't have enough parking for that.
But there could be little,
2 per thousand,
Pickup
doesn't do- you need
things,
10 per
pickup.
thousand for restaurants. They're gonna, they want, you're gonna have a hard time even getting retail there. I think you're gonna probably be off, flex space,
mostly flex
office
space.
warehouse, flex space.
Yeah, and obviously the challenge with the site is that when you have light industrial zoning, you have those use categories, right? But you don't get the rents associated with, a more premium product, right? So it's like we're fighting this battle of feasibility where we want to push the envelope, which is great, we all do, but we're not getting $30 rents here, right? So it's a delicate balance, for sure.
I think the major issue is the site plan. I mean, I like the building, okay, the site plan is my major issue.
I'm having trouble seeing those other two buildings.
Well,
Without major
let's-
changes.
Talk about that for just a second. I don't think, and Tim, this is really a question for staff is, really what you said is you are wanting to get phase one approved, sounds like.
That's it.
So if all we're doing is phase one, then these other two buildings, we don't really even need to comment. I mean, we can give you
We don't know what they're gonna be.
conceptual comments on that or whatever, but you can't do those. You can't clear. I suppose you could take the building down, but you can't, and maybe you're not intending this, but you can't like develop the whole site and then plug those two buildings on the right. Can't plug those in later. You can build all of it later, but you can't clear it and have pad ready. That's my understanding.
Well, yeah, I didn't even realize that this was only the one building. I was under the assumption, based on the application, that we were talking about all three, and that the architecture would just be expanded across all of the buildings. You know, we don't have a phasing plan here on this site. Obviously, that would be something that, you know, most likely what you'd have done is the site would be cleared. The actual office building is located right here right now. Then this is a lot that will have to be consolidated with the rest of the property. And this is all just kind of wooded currently. So these two on this side. From a phasing standpoint, and it is the town's policy that they will only be permitted to clear what is necessary to install what they're currently building. So they're not going to be able to come in, clear cut the site and get pad ready for these other two buildings. They will have to provide us with a phasing plan that will show what the intent is going forward and only clearing what's permitted based on the phasing plan. So that being said, you know, what we're looking at here apparently is just this building here, and this is preliminary. They do have to come back for final. You know, based on what they have here and the plans that are in place, I don't see any reason why it would be problematic for that particular situation.
And the existing building to be torn down is under that building.
Yeah, it's right here, basically.
Okay.
But in reality, the building will be coming down as part of this plan, because I'm going to need area for staging and.
It can, because it's in phase one and it's under that horizontal building. I thought it was all the way over to the right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was thinking so too.
No,
And including the.
But I mean, you gotta tear the building down.
so you have the building
Gotta
here
go.
and
That's
Elks
step
Lodge
one.
Lane is on the far
Okay.
side. That is where 405 South Main Roberts property that backs up to there. And then you have Elks Lodge.
This goes right up to Robert's property.
Yes,
Yeah, I see that now. So all that wooded land back in there, it's gonna stay wooded land for the time being.
You have to build only the pond in
That's-
phase one. Can't build the whole, can't build that entire pond. You gotta think through that. Well,
But my idea was that
I hate to see you waste all this land back here. That's a big rectangle of land back in there. I mean,
well, what I'm trying to do.
being flex space, you don't need you don't need frontage like you do for retail. So, I mean, you could go in 90 degrees of the road and utilize that land.
Sure. I'm also trying to be sensitive because I do have tree protection I need to address too. And I'm trying to not, clear cut the site. And leave some trees and leave some buffer there. But to my earlier comment about building the buildings is that first building and the second building are going to look different. And so rather than come in here and try to, we're going to talk about 3 different building designs, right? I mean, we're trying to just get one nail down. So I would prefer to get one nail down, understand the spirit of the committee. And then when it comes time to look at the second one, you guys can look at the first one in the built environment and say, I like that. Or you know what, I would do this differently. And then when we go to do the second building, we can make those adjustments and provide a better product going forward. And also the, buildings 2 and 3, they orient perpendicular. There's only 75 foot of width proposed. So there's not a lot of, sort of visual massing you're going to see when you're driving. And keeping in mind that when, I'm assuming this is going to be a 35-mile-an-hour street. I mean, when we drive even at that speed, we're not looking like this. Okay, our sight window is very narrow. So I'm not saying people aren't going to see the buildings. My point is that we're not going to be, unless you're sitting in front of them, standing there, you're not going to be, driving by. It's just, maybe you take a glance and you look back.
Right, and I think that's why some parts of Somerville look like they do, because they were designed based on the vehicle. And we're trying to turn the clock back 100 years and say buildings are designed for the pedestrian. And when you design buildings for a pedestrian, they become successful places to live and work. And you can see that all across this country. You can see it all across Europe. And when you look at communities that are based around the car, nobody wants to live there. People clamor to go on vacation to all of these pedestrian focused places, which is how Somerville started. And we're trying to extend that concept and that fabric with all these undeveloped sites, which is Chris Campo's comment about, should that building be closer to the sidewalk with maybe less parking out front? I think that's an interesting thought. And how do you accommodate your occasional, your business owner and their staff can park in the back? And how many people do you really need to come up to the front of these buildings?
He's not gonna have walk-in customers. This
No.
is gonna be office
No, I'm
warehouse.
talking about,
This is
the-
gonna be just like Robert's
I
property next
understand that.
door,
I understand that. I'm saying that,
which you gotta park in front because you got overhead doors, to put your
right,
trucks and
but he's
everything else
got
in
some
the back.
parking in the back, for example. If that building moved up closer to Maple, you'd have more parking in the back and you could still get into the back bays. That's one way of making the building more pedestrian focused. And I realize you're not going to have street traffic, but there's a lot of buildings in Somerville that don't have street traffic, like the funeral home. You don't just walk in there, but it provides a nice background as you're walking down the street.
Greg, I wasn't necessarily saying take the building all the way up to the street on my earlier comment, but that certainly is an option. I think
Well,
it'd be tough with this
closer.
type of use.
If
What
it
I'm,
were,
what I'm saying is have more green between Maple and the building.
Mhm.
The building,
Well, put some foundation planning in.
Right.
yeah,
Needs-
soften the
If
building.
you've got 3 feet, it
Mhm.
probably needs to be 10, something like that to be able to fit trees in there. And I don't necessarily disagree with Greg on his feelings about the building. As far as it does look dark, I think the colors chosen and the rendering may actually influence that a little bit. I think I can get behind the building. I mean, endorse the building. I think at the end of the day, it's an industrial site, like you said, and it's everything industrial use. I would prefer you come in and go, I'm gonna build this mixed use thing with restaurants and vitality and all this stuff. That's not what you're doing, and I can't make you do that, right? I wish that were viable and I wish that could go on here, but that's not what you're here for. So that being said, if you can increase the experience from the road, that view, I think we can get there on the buildings. Specifically, what can I tell you to improve the building? I'm not sure. It is very long. Maybe it needs to be broken into somehow. I mean, it's not that different from the buildings where Toast is on Trolley Road. You know, it's a strip center. So So
You're
let's just,
talking about for this building?
this one. only-
Yeah, but
only
you-
What is this building? 160 feet, 20-foot wide units?
200 by 75.
So they're,
25 foot base.
how much? 25 foot? 25, not 20. Okay. Cause there are 8 bays.
Yes, sir.
That'd be 150 feet.
So I'm
Yeah,
trying to,
8, 200 feet. Bingo.
200 by
Bingo.
75.
Right. 200 long. Yeah. A 200-foot long building that's a long building and it's difficult. You got to play some tricks to break it up, kind of being 200 feet long. It's just longer than the most buildings that you encounter,
Oh,
you know.
so giving you some tangible feedback, it's, the building reads a little long. Maybe we need to break it up somehow, maybe in the middle, maybe on both ends. Maybe, we haven't said it, but maybe the building needs to step in and out a little bit. That's actually one of our typical comments. Everything's on the same flat plane, maybe in the center or something that needs to come in 3-4 feet, I don't know. And then increase the landscaping. And we might need to do it on the ends as well, because it's just asphalt and concrete. So on both ends, would be nice to be softened. I think that's, and then when you come back, you need to show clearly what's in phase 1, because we can't really comment on phase 2. It's good to have it in mind, like you said, so we have context and we can kind of steer you in the right direction, but we have to focus on phase 1.
Well, we need to resolve this 60-foot buffer thing too, because I don't get
Yeah,
that.
is there a hardship to have
What
a
is,
60-foot buffer or?
why is it a 60-foot buffer?
Yeah, agreed.
That's what's required. It's
Why?
residential. So any,
60 feet?
yes,
My God.
with the adoption of the UDO, a 60-foot buffer was added between heavy industrial and light industrial and any residential uses.
That is industrial. We're used to seeing it.
Yeah, we're used to seeing commercial.
Yeah, it used to be just 15 feet. And quite frankly, that's not adequate when you're trying to separate those types of uses. You can't get the density, especially with new plantings, between that residential use and even a light industrial use. This is gonna, it's not like it's the sawmill, which would be completely different situation. This is better suited, and they are requesting a reduction from 60 feet to 30 feet, but it is along this back portion here. So you'll have the largely untouched section here. And when you make the turn, it would allow for the stormwater to be installed within this portion here, which they're not allowed to install detention within required buffers, according to the
But
ordinance.
we would be allowing it.
But the 60-foot buffer on the screen is next to a gravel road on the left side.
In the top corner.
No, bottom left. That's a gravel road.
It's not an improved road. That is more of a driveway, to tell the truth.
But it's not.
This here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and that is never, that's not installed.
It's a public.
And that west second North Street, that's not navigable. You can't go up and down that either.
No, that's not extended either. It makes no connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's
my
a
point is-
remnant right of way is really what it is.
So what again?
Remnant, it's left over. It was dedicated, but it was never
But
improved.
it's not, so it's not a budding residential, it's a budding public land.
But these properties here, right here, this
Those are
is
residential.
neighborhood residential, this is
Yeah.
neighborhood residential, neighborhood residential, neighborhood
Yeah.
residential.
I'm specifically on the left is what I was talking about.
And they're able to maintain the 60 feet over here, 60 feet, 60 feet. This angled where they are directly abutting the neighborhood residential, that's where that reduction comes into question from 60 feet to 30 feet.
Anybody got any heartburn about that? Think we can negotiate through that.
Yeah, I would just ask, that then does not have to be answered today, but the 60 foot on the left side, verify that that's actually required there, because it's technically not on.
Why would it need that?
Yeah, it's based on the zoning. So you have, if you look, this is the section here that you're talking about. From our map. So you got Elks Lodge Lane. This is West Second North. That would be extended through. This is, as I said, a remnant right of way that has a building in it, a connection down to First. It's not really any, it'll never get improved. So neighborhood residential, neighborhood residential, neighborhood residential, that 60-foot buffer is required in that odd notch out.
What else?
These are all public buildings down here.
Okay.
Church. Community center, youth centers, they're not residential. I mean, zone residential, but they're not.
All right, so we gave some, I think, some tangible comments. 30-foot buffer is fine, I think, to everybody. What else do we need to talk about?
I like the project. I like the use. I like what it could be to the community. I don't like the facade, as I've mentioned. I think you'd be better off using some wood, relate to the timber mill, acknowledge the timber mill, go with something that's light and happy and fun.
Any other comments? Okay, so we need to make a motion for preliminary approval or denial.
I'd make the motion for preliminary approval based on the comments, which means there's a lot of work to do on building elevations primarily and landscape.
What do we do about these?
They're off the record. We're not doing anything with those other buildings.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so further discussion. So you're leaning towards preliminary approval, but when you come back, you don't have to go for final approval. You can, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out. I can't tell you what to do, but it seems like the next step would be a preliminary approval again. That might save you some time and engineering and all that, but do whatever you feel is best. Is that fair? Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So this is not a voting.
No, we vote for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let's call for the vote. All vote in favor of preliminary approval with conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Next is the North Gum Street office.
I have to recuse.
No, this is a request for conceptual review, so we do not need a full quorum to actually do that. So you guys can provide your comments, and because there's no vote, it's fine. So as just detailed, this is a request for conceptual review for a proposed new two-story office building on 0.3 acres. The property zone DMX, downtown mixed use. This is located at the corner of East 3rd North Street and North Gum Street. This is currently a vacant property, and this is their first visit to the board. A landscape plan, tree removal plan, and a photometric plan are still required. Parking is not specifically required to be provided in the DMX zoning district. The plan does show 14 parking spaces. Parking cannot be located in front of the proposed building. The building is within 1 foot of the 3rd Street right of way. The proposed building meets the 35% frontage build out. requirement on both the Third Street side and the Gum Street side. Building materials include aluminum storefront windows and doors, standing seam metal roof, brick, hardy plank siding, and cast stone. Colors shown in renderings are in the packet. Due to the proximity of the building to the street, no ground sign is permitted. Wanted to throw that out there. At this point, Elliot is here and he can present for the applicants.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Elliot Locklear with Locklear Consulting, working for Mr. Pratt on this project. Fun fact before I get started, on that previous project, that triangle is caused by the rail that used to come out of Mr. Prettyman's mill and across 78, across Wassamasaw, up through Salisbury traffic or property and north to bring the logs into the mill by his own rail. No rail bed. Yeah. So this particular site is across North Gun Street from the post office. Caddy corner is from behind the bank. Pardon? Behind the bank. Four-way stop. You're right. It's a four-way stop. So it is behind side. So the next four-way stop heading toward Main Street is the Perpetual Restaurant with the food truck beside it. Okay, so we're on street headed to the Berlin G. The bank is pretty far away, so on North Gum there. Yeah, but so it's behind.
East Third.
Right. So if you're turning at between the bank and Coastal Coffee Roasters and coming down after go through the first four-way stop with the restaurant past Night Law Firm, then you've got a second four-way stop before you get to Berlin G. That's that corner on your right. I know it's kind of invisible corner.
No,
Nothing on
it's
the-
vacant.
Nothing on the site. Yeah, Shady corner, Dorchester.
Yeah, there's a building there years ago. It was torn down.
Dutch Slingers.
So it's across from the post office.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Well, I've seen you around. Yep.
Yeah, prior to the adoption of the UDO, so it was early 2019.
We had the building in a different spot and Elliot came to talk to the staff here. And the first thing I did when the building street. That's why we're here. So I think it's a good direction.
All right, thank you, Robert. So this site, we're not attempting to get a curb cut onto East Third North. Don't believe we could. The on your plan north there, that house has a circle drive and we couldn't get any separation from their exit drive. So we're just coming off of North Gum Street. Therefore, the only location for the drive would be aligned with the driveway coming out of the post office. So that's where the access is. Don't have any other place that we can get a curb cut there with DOT. In doing that, we eliminate 3 parking spaces for the building next door. And so the first kind of set of parking spaces is to replace those 3 with 4 new ones. So they'd be shared across easement parking. Tim noted in his comments that there is a parking space that is on the street side beyond the face of the building on that side. We can't pull the building any closer to North Gum Street due to overhead power. So it's as close as we're comfortable with setting it toward North Gum. Pull it up as close as we can get to East Third North. Tree inspection, there were no trees that were certainly specimen trees, but there are some pretty decent trees. There's a couple of big pines on the corner, but they have the top knocked out and a big fork in them, and so there is the 25-inch hardwood, that is a sycamore, and I think it looks pretty healthy for the age. There is a 13-inch white oak that's growing up at its stump that can either be left or cut away and open it up for the sycamore to probably do a lot better. The other thing is the 18-inch hardwood on the back that is on the adjoining lot, but is salvageable. And then there are some smaller growth in the northeast corner on the East Third North side that would not need to be taken out in order to develop what we're looking to put in here. It's not big canopy stuff like the sycamore and the 18-inch hardwood. So the building being pulled up to the front, I show a sidewalk up against the right of way. I don't know what the criteria is going to be between the town and DOT for installing a sidewalk. I would like to move the sidewalk closer to the street so that we can get some foundation plantings up against the building. I don't expect that on East Third North is a main corridor, because that's how you get to the Berlin G. So I didn't think we'd get a curb cut. Don't think we're going to get parallel parking there either. But it's possible. Because I think at the coastal coffee roasters, their parking was existing, and so they have on-street parking, but I don't see it coming on down here. So I'm not really planning to ask, but I believe we've got adequate parking inside for the square footage. Not a large building. And we'll get to the architectural later, and I have already looked at it, but be less than a half-acre of land disturbance, so we're not required to do stormwater detention, but we will be looking to do some low-impact development type things to maybe create some areas to hold a little bit of the runoff before it leaves the site, so we don't cause any problem in the street. Haven't gotten my survey back yet. I don't believe that there's any in-ground storm drainage along the street that we can take it to. So we've just got to, I believe it's going to be a roadside swale going down to the west toward the rail. It's kind of how it looks like it drains now. So that's pretty much the site and the justification for how the site is laid out.
Just a quick question. Are you bringing, looks like the left side of the parking lot has curb? Maybe curb and gutter? Is that what your intention is?
No, that's I've only for
Just
the
two
island
lines.
and the radiuses, yes, but the other just a flat curb to hold the asphalt.
So where the word north is,
At that end, yes.
that's curb,
Yes, that's curb at that end.
flat curb. Or roll curb.
No, that end is a
I know it's,
vertical curb to stop the car from backing into the neighbor's property.
okay,
on
I know
that
it's
north side.
minutia, but I was just curious if we're bringing curb into Gum Street, because I don't think we have any over there now.
No, I just didn't, sorry, should have trimmed that line before we got past the right of way.
Okay. That's fine.
Yep.
So it's- Can you go to this? I think there's a site plan that shows sidewalks.
It's on that one. It's dimension runs down below it.
All right, I may be thinking.
Yeah,
of-
I saved my measurements when I was doing my
Okay.
review, so apologize for that.
I may be
That's
thinking
just
of.
drawn in there in the right of way, right at the edge of the right of way. If, there's UDO and the town would love to have streetscape landscaping. DOT has fought that tooth and nail.
We'll just settle for sidewalk.
Well, if we can get some sidewalk, a little farther away from the right of way, I'd like to leave 6 feet at least to the face of the building so we can get some foundation landscaping on the building and plan it up a little bit. Just don't know what the town's gonna end up with DOT. Yeah, everybody fights it.
Where's the property line with the neighbor? Your parking will encroach on the neighbor and you're gonna share it?
Yeah, the
Okay.
property line runs through the 2 trees. And
Who's the neighbor? Y'all know him pretty close? You're the neighbor? You be the neighbor too? Okay.
got a bit of easement on that. Or but that driveway to those 3 parking spaces is technically that's backing out into the road, many of those 3 that are there now. And so doing away with those and to where they can get turned around and come out is a better safety anyway.
With the exception of the foundation planting you mentioned on Third, I don't really have any issues with site plan.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like this,
Exception of foundation.
meaning I'd rather you have foundation planting than a sidewalk.
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
I'm not wild about how close the parking spaces are to that 18-inch hardwood and 9-inch oak in the back, but trust y'all have evaluated that already.
Yeah, but Chris, when I look at it, it's like, it's a parking lot. You're putting a parking lot on the site and then whatever's left, you're putting the building. It just seems really heavy parking pavement. But let's keep going and see what the rest of it looks like.
How do you get away without any sidewalk on Gum Street?
I just didn't put a placeholder on there. I
Just
don't
didn't
know
put
what
it.
it's gonna be.
Generally, we require a sidewalk going.
Yeah, it would be required. The Engineering Public Works Department has
Still
the
required.
ability to waive that requirement if it's justified. But that is entirely up to them. And unfortunately, we don't have a representative to address that tonight. And they didn't provide me with a comment prior to the meeting. But we would typically request sidewalk across both frontages.
Well, the ordinance requires that. So.
Yeah,
And
I'm
to-
expecting to.
What does it look like?
Pardon?
What does the building look like?
Line elevation or the colored rendering, which do you prefer?
So
The
bottom right is the front. Alongside would be the front to East Third North.
So you're overhanging the doors of the overhanging property. East Third North.
Yeah, probably not in real life, but building back a little bit.
Coastal Coffee, they have awnings that project into the right of way and DOT allowed it.
Okay, hard ones or just fabric?
No, they're hard. I
Okay.
think maybe metal or wood, yeah.
I think the drawing we're looking at is its isolated thing is nice. I'm not surprised. That looks nice. I'm just struggling with the placement of this building on the site, that close to the corner. I know there was a UDO. The UDO doesn't exist anymore as far as I know, all those rules. It does? With those setbacks from the sidewalk and all
Well,
that?
that didn't change. The specific
Okay, well,
design guidelines as it relates to some of the more, window
Okay.
percentage, things like that.
well, let's go back to the overall context plan, because I think this area of Somerville is fascinating. I always love going through. I was at the post office today. That part of town is so neat. I feel like it's this group of cottages that have unfortunately been a few bad neighbors have moved in and done some horrible buildings in there, but generally that whole section between Berlin G and Main Street is really kind of pleasant, and it's cottage-like in that it's still, even though I think a lot of those buildings are commercial, I'm not sure how many people live in there or not. But it seems to be a mixture. Some people live there, a lot of it like attorney's office and things like that. That's my general perception. So it's sort of this, almost like a modern day village with all these different users. But the buildings to me sort of are not like right on the street. They all seem to be a little bit more internal. And it just, I know there's this UDO thing, but I think the priority is, what is the context? What's next to it? What's across the street? What's within that block? What's that whole feel for this part of town? And how does this project enhance that? How does it not only fit in, but how does it fit in, but actually make that whole area better? And I think the architecture does that. I'm just really concerned about the building placement on the site as being what I perceive, and I'll drive around again. I perceive that building placement as being sort of foreign to this whole part of town. And that's my concern. I think part of that is it's a very small site and you're putting a lot of parking on there. And it's what I call, look at the parking of the guy next door. And I don't know who owns that one, but that's neat because it reminds me, oh, I was just in New England, in these little towns. They just kind of park here and then there's a couple spaces there and they sort of make it fit. Whereas today we're, oh, you gotta have 9 by 18 spaces and they have to be parallel. And, it's just, that's what I look at this.
The building on the opposite corner that Paul Lawton occupies is essentially right on the property line.
Yeah, and that's what I want to go and take a look.
Uh,
Yeah, that's what I was kind of seeing. I didn't know.
yeah, Paul Lawton's building
Can we-
is right on the property line. It's on it's on this corner over
Well,
here.
let's go look at that plan that was that an aerial or something we were looking at first? It wasn't really a site plan, but what were we looking at? That one right there, number 2. And look at the patterns that are set up in that part of town. And I'm not saying there are no buildings on the corner. I'm just saying that whole and I'm not an expert on that area. I've driven through there a couple of hundred times. I've never stopped and really analyzed it, but my overall perception is the buildings aren't on the street corners. They're internal, they're cottages, they used to be houses. Now they've morphed into whatever. And then there's a couple of bad examples like the cleaners and the post office. It just did whatever they wanted. And we're trying to, again, set back the clock and say, if you were building at this time when the rest of these buildings were building, what would you have done? And how can you take that and modernize the function to meet contemporary needs, but not, again, building on the fabric. It's great fabric there. How do you build upon that? And when I look at the site plan, I'm not seeing
Well,
it.
one of the problems is they've already been before this board and they were told to do what they just did. That's it. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I've always felt that
move it back where you at.
We'd like that, but who's gonna do it? So
Well-
Why don't you do that? That work okay?
Yes.
If they want to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance,
Why would they have to go to where they're at?
parking's not permitted in the front yard.
Huh?
Parking is not permitted in the front of the building
We'll call the front side.
or the side.
Well, then that's the challenge of these buildings, because when they were placed, and I mentioned about, finding these funny parking areas. And you look at the site plan and said, that's a great site plan for parking. Couldn't be better. Other than that big tree that, if you cut that down, then you'd have awesome parking, but the parking, again, part of Somerville that I love is that traditionally parking hasn't driven the architectural expression. Parking doesn't drive decision-making. Parking didn't drive the development of our downtown. The aesthetics drove it, the pedestrians made it, and then they kind of fit in parking sometimes people park over by the railroad tracks, sometimes they park it, it's just parking doesn't drive us. The cities and towns where parking drives decisions are horrible places to live.
This is probably not gonna be helpful. In my perfect world, you put the building not on the corner, even though the UDO says you have to. You put the building where it belongs on the site and you park in the road right of way, like we've done for 100 years. Well,
Chris, the UDO does not say you have to put it on the front. Or right on the property line. That changed. UDO changed.
It can go down to 0. There's no maximum setback. That was removed. So it can move around on the
They
site.
can move it around on the site per UDO.
That being
Like a
said,
tree might be an issue. You might have issues with trees. I don't know.
well, I guess
How do we make this simple? Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
Cause
it's,
If we could go back to the old plan, I mean, leaning on Kelly. Well, you might want to let him talk then. How about go back to the site plan? And let me just get back to something that was said 10 minutes ago, because those buildings to the left are set back because the zoning said you shall have a 30-foot setback to the right of way. They're not there because
that's
they're
what it
old
used to
houses
say.
and
That's
cottages.
what, no, that's what it
That's
used
what
to
it used to
say.
say.
Yes.
So we always threw away the front 30 feet of a piece of property to create a setback. Well, the only way you can throw away 30 feet is if you use the next 30 feet to put your parking between the road and the building. And that's how that works. So if you pull the building to the front, you can park behind. On a corner lot, the issue we've got here is if I pull it to either street, my behind is the other side. So the parking is going to be up against the street on the other side. So the farther I move my building to the top of the page, those 4 parking spaces on the left side go away because they can't be forward of the building. So the more I do what makes sense, the fewer parking spaces the lot gets.
And how many spaces do you need? And I know that's hard to predict because you don't know exactly who your tenants are going to be, but you are trying to do a lot of stuff on a small site that has a huge tree.
First of all, the first 3, because if I don't get a variance for that 4th space on the left side, the first 3 are replacing 3 that are existing on the lot next door. Okay, so those aren't even ours.
So how many spaces do you need for your building?
So you
What's
got
the square
10
footage?
including handicap,
You got 10.
including handicap.
Do you
So
need
what's
10?
wrong with that?
Well, when you don't know what you're gonna have for tenants, you can't predict.
No, well, the ordinance says for whatever square footage it says for office use, that's how many spots you can have.
Not with the ordinance. Ordinance says you don't have to put any parking in. We're in downtown Somerville. We used to park on the street.
It's a
But this is
minimum.
not where we can park on the
It's a
street
minimum.
because DOT does not allow
Well,
any type of angled parking.
Yeah, but
that's why you have 100-foot right of ways there. And I've made them let us do it with what's their names? I forget the Chinese one we built the building for on Gum Street. The seamstress. We parked on the street because they had to let us, because that's why you have 100-foot depth mold right away there.
It
That's-
makes sense.
That's the reason for it. And so they let us
When-
do it.
What year was that?
Oh, that was 1938. I don't know.
Well, let's back up. How long?
Hey, all those people from DOT that we dealt with then are retired. I don't know who's at DOT.
How
anymore.
long ago did Main Street Somerville on the square go from 4 lanes to 2? How long ago was that? Okay, 15 years ago.
Longer than that.
And before that was when DOT said, you're not going to back into our street.
Well, you
That
used to,
parking along, hold on, Bill. That parking along Main Street was angled parking on both sides.
it's
You could get
45-degree
a
parking.
lot of parking on that block of Main Street.
Yeah.
But when they did the taking out of the lane and creating the quieting space in the middle, they could not go back with angled parking. Even if they had more space, they could not go back. So it was either don't park there or do parallel.
Well,
parking.
it'd be
So the best
suicide to
we could
have it
get
now.
here would be parallel parking on the street.
If you,
Possible? No, because we've got to set back at least 40 feet from the corner.
yeah, but if you did nothing in the right of way, but you just let people park there. I'm serious.
People just.
That's
park
what they're
there
doing
anyway.
now, right?
I can't present that to you at this board.
Why not?
Wait a minute, why are we in this discussion? Because we're talking about building location. Okay,
So
Where-
as far as
wherever you
building
put the
location,
building,
if I
you
move my
can't
building
park.
toward the top of the page to get it closer to an interior lot line rather than the front corner, then those 4 parking spaces on the left are probably going to go away. Which,
Well, I'm thinking, and again, I have no idea how many parking spaces you need, but if you put the building so that all your parking was single loaded, you kept it exactly where it is, and you took the handicap spaces and the other 3, and that was no longer parking, and you put the building there. It all depends, if you need 10 parking spaces, I think your site's too small. If you can do less than 10, I think that opens up some flexibility.
well, you'd be knocking some trees down too. That's another consideration, is the type of trees you'd have to knock down. Because you see these trees in the photo up near the, going towards Main Street, the back of the property. You see
those-
some big trees in
Yeah, if
there.
you said those are pines,
go to
pines
the-
aren't,
Go to the page before this. I think it shows them,
Doesn't show them.
shows the one that's, yeah.
Might
So-
also just appear as though that there are more trees in this just by the projection of the picture. The angle at which it was taken, sometimes it's hard to tell. Especially if they take it when the trees are leafed out, so
So the survey is accurate.
I would assume.
Tree survey probably is. Right?
Taking out a gum and
well, gum's not a tree.
Well, look
Gum's
at
a
all the,
nuisance.
we're not voting on it. They're just asking for conceptual.
Well, my
I
concern.
think we've made enough comments.
My concern is
Oh,
the
we
comments
talked in a
about,
circle for 30 minutes, so your
Yeah.
comments
Well-
have given me no direction.
I
I
don't,
think you can go, I think you can come back with the plan that you got approved last time, if you'd like to do that.
how is that plan different from this plan? I don't remember it.
First of all, it had a driveway that came out on the East Third North Street, which. I
Well, that was a
expect to get
difference.
Approval for. It had, there was one plan that had the building moved directly to the top of the page into that corner. And there was also one where the building was essentially set off against the building on the neighboring lot. But those buildings essentially were side by side. And I believe that plan had the far left driveway on the neighbor's property,
There was a connection.
and it connected across the front, and there was some angled parking toward the street, kind of underneath the power. And then it went up and out onto East Third North. So it was a parking and drive on 2 sides of the property on the corner. So that was the You know, we're at least in, obviously, the full plan that's before you now, the parking and drive is in the rear behind the building, as opposed to what was approved before where the parking and the drive is on.
Why don't we just let it roll the way it is right now? I mean, I think that's the simplest, neatest thing to do. It's not gonna ruin the neighborhood.
You're right. It's not going to ruin the neighborhood. But it's not enhancing the neighborhood.
Go back to the layout, Tim.
If I'm being honest, I don't really like the layout, but I'm not gonna push back on it because I don't know what else you can do. I mean, that's the truth. Do I like where the building is? Not really. But you have to have parking in there. You know?
You have to have that much. My concern, Chris, is they're trying to put too much on the site. And if there's fewer parking spaces, you'd have more flexibility with the building.
How many square feet is the building?
Well, as you push the building up, you're eliminating the handicap, and that's moving up. Okay. Because the building bumps out there. So that starts going away. You got a single loaded.
How many square feet is the building, Elliot?
Good day.
Huh?
I believe it's 2,000 feet, ground floor, and that's a second floor.
What's office parking ratio? 3 per thousand?
2.
Uh, 3 per thousand. So you get 6 normally.
$19.90. What it says right there. $19.90 on the first floor and
Well, 2,000 feet basically.
$12.08 on the second.
Okay, so that doubles it. So you're about 10 is about right.
Right, but if you cut off the office, data, electric, and conference room, you could slide the building up and away from the corner.
Made the building skinnier, longer.
Again, I just think it's a lot of building and parking for
Possibly
the
do
site.
that.
Something's got
Take
to,
that off the back and make the building longer. One thing that we had talked about, because of the flip flop of parking versus building, is that the entry is on the street, parking is in the rear, so everyone's got to go around.
Well,
We stretched it
Generally, you
out,
try-
we put a-
Generally, you try to get 10,000 square feet of building per acre. That's economics, basic real estate economics, 10,000 per acre. This is a half acre or less. So you'd be looking at about 5,000 square feet. This building is going to be about 4,000 square feet. Okay, 3, with both floors. 3,200 square feet. 3,200 square feet. 2,000 on the ground floor, 1,200 on the second floor, 3,200 square feet. That's 3.2 times 3. That's almost 10.
let's go look at the site.
So that's about right.
Well, let's
So
look at the site plan again. Because if you cut off that bump,
I think you could slide that whole building
could that
up
whole thing slide up?
and then you could put those 4 parking spaces closer to Gum Street.
No, I think if you made the buildings thinner, you could
Yeah.
slide that whole thing up, the parking could stay exactly as it is. And just slide it up, cut off the bump, make it a little longer, and it looks like it would fit.
but you're still right on the 0 property line.
Well, it is from the.
So what have you gained? You hadn't gained anything.
Well, again, I think you're getting back to the pattern of the neighborhood where you don't really have corner buildings unless something was built in the 70s. You're getting back to the traditional, more of a traditional building place. I would like it off the interior, but I acknowledge if you can't get into the parking really should come in from East 3rd North. That's where it should come in from. If you can't do that and it has to come from Gum, then you don't have a lot of good options with the parking. I think you have the parking in the right place. So I'm looking at the right third of your site And within that, can that building slide up or down, and where is the best place to put that? I just think it's odd to have it where it is.
And DOT won't allow you to put it on Third just because there's a little residential driveway right next to it.
Show every driveway in each direction for whatever the site distance is, 300 feet or 400 feet.
Mhm.
And the distance to that is, I mean, the distance is not that 300 feet.
Yeah.
But this distance, the separation distance to an adjoining property, if I've got a alternate somewhere else, then that's
Gotcha.
at least 60 feet.
Well, I think to kind of get y'all some clarity and kind of get y'all out of here, I think it's worth studying, making the building thinner by those 3 rooms that are on the side. Maybe they can go to the back, maybe slide the building up. And I think that those 4 parking spaces on the right can actually slide down and be maybe on both sides of that hardwood tree. That would get the building at least off of North Gum. Follow me? Study it. I mean, that's all you can do. Just do a quick sketch and see if that works. The architect will have to change the building footprint. No. Mm-mm.
No, you can make it longer,
It's just
Add it to
basically
the
taking that
ends.
wing and put it on the end.
and you have more space that's closer to the perimeter. It should help your overall layout.
I think he's right on the goddamn street, just like you are right now.
You know, I thought so too, but then that little tax map didn't show it that way. Yeah.
It doesn't show. Doesn't show.
Yeah.
Mm,
All right.
yeah, from memory, it's not right on
Pull
the
out your phones and look at it on your aerial photo.
I'm gonna drive around a little bit more and get a better sense.
But yeah, the
Again,
lot, he is
All we-
close up.
all we're trying to do,
Just like you are. Right?
I mean, I live in downtown Somerville in a house and my front porch is no more than 15 feet off the
Mine
right
too.
away.
Mine too. Yep.
And so, cottages in downtown Somerville, we're pretty close up this street. I don't-
I'm 30 foot.
Mhm.
All right.
I mean, I think y'all have done a good job. It's just. Yeah, stuff like.
Any comments on architecture? The look.
Can we look at it
It's-
one more
it's-
time?
It's cottage looking.
The brick massing looks a little weird to me, if I'm, to be honest. I think you see this all the time. I think the brick water table really is kind of a new modern thing over the last 20 years. I don't think you find a lot, and I could be wrong, but I don't think you find a lot of cottages that have that brick water table for 3 feet going all the way around the building. I mean, I don't know, it's just thrown out there for discussion, but I think that. And we've approved that before. So again, I'm not gonna say, oh, heck no. It's just if the party went all the way to the ground, it would look more authentic.
Well, the tablature of the roof, and the framing, the trim of the gables,
Mhm.
you got rat tails showing.
Yeah.
Then you got vertical board and batten, and then you got what would be, I forget what you call it, but it'd be the vertical board, horizontal board just below where
Yeah.
the boxing comes in.
Mhm.
More traditional roof framing would look better. And that would pull the building down a little bit. Now, white band that's up above the thing would be more of just part of the boxing for the roof. I'm not sure if Chris is still on the call.
No, he's long gone.
You can tell. We'll tell. We can tell.
But it doesn't look anything like a downtown Somerville.
No.
So brick is something that's always been asked for before, it seems like, but you're saying we're in the
Contextual.
cottage area here, let's stick with siding. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Brick and make it look like foundation. Like this thing's not built on the flat. Bring your windows up so the windows are not all the way to the floor.
Yeah.
Put them with a 31-inch normal window sill height. And the brick will come up 2 feet off the ground.
Does it need to be elevated? Or that,
See, that's, now we're talking, now we're losing space to ramps. You
What's
know,
in the back
a
anyway?
Traditional house is a siding that's set high up off the ground, and that's where the brick was.
Mhm.
But ADA says you gotta build a ramp to get to the doors, and that's
Yeah.
not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be the face of the building is gonna be a ramp, and that's.
well, right now you're showing the sidewalk in the back. So it might, could do sidewalk and a ramp in the back and it look okay. No, not
See,
30.
maybe we can get some, though,
Make
maybe
it
we,
2 feet high.
Then it's 24 feet off.
maybe we can get some.
Yeah,
It's too much.
24-foot ramp. Okay.
Build a foot off the ground.
The site's tight enough
Okay.
without adding ramps. I don't think we want a literal copy of the cottages in that area. I think Chris can look at those, draw from that and say, here's a 2022 update of that feel. And
Agreed.
how do you draw from the local context, which I love. I mean, I think that's just a great part of
How
town.
about if you just left the brick water table the way it's got, and get rid of the rest of it? And then simplify a siding, getting the boxing more traditional.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see, the water table seems very tall to me.
If you come down some.
And I agree with Bill somewhat, and I don't like windows that go all the way to the floor, but 30 inches is too high, somewhere in that knee height, calf height, typically.
More like 18 to 24 with the. brick.
Something like that. Yeah, bring them down to the floor, just, yeah. Not my house. Mine are 12 inches. It's awesome.
You don't have an old house.
Well,
Is that, you feel like you have some direction?
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
We gotta fit in with something that's.
Yeah.
A lot of mistakes around.
It's gonna look better than the post office. For sure.
Even
I
with
guess
their
we could
addition.
do Tabby instead of brick below, right?
Just a square.
Hey, somebody approved that. Okay. Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for talking through it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Bill, I thought I heard a motion for adjournment with a second by Greg.
You're right.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.